This is my son, Riley. He was born 10 years after my oldest child, and he started out very curious like this, but then screens began to creep into his life, and there was a direct contrast between the way that she lived her young child life and he did. And so it troubled me. I didn't realize how much he was missing by being on screens. It just seemed to be drawn to that like a gnat. So that's how I started Durable Human. I began to realize that we needed to be durable. We need to be able to stand up against the pressures that technology brings, to know what we have as human beings, and to keep it safe, strong, and durable, which means to be effective as long as possible. 3 years ago, I really had a growing up experience. I went to the nation's first internet addiction treatment center outside of Seattle, and I saw the young men there whose lives had been totally derailed by their use of technology. And it was very troubling, but such a great eye-opener, and I was so grateful to be there. So I asked the director, Hillary Cash, what is something that parents can do to ensure that their kids are not going to end up here? And she said one word: attachment. I, as a health journalist, didn't really know much about attachment, so I went to work and checked it out and found out what it is, and have built this online course around the idea that parents need to know what attachment is. It's vitally important that they understand it. So let me run you through the course really fast. I call it the Confidence Kickstart, and it's for new and renewing parents. There are 5 short video lessons in it. There are downloadable offline thought exercises between. So I'm trying to get them, yes, they have to watch a short video, no longer than 14 minutes, but then they are going to have a little bit of homework that they don't do with the computer. And then there are interviews with top experts in this course. So the first, it's got 4 letters, A, B, C, and D. So the very first one is attachment. I'm going to blow through this really fast. It used to be so natural to be attached to your baby. We didn't even think about it. It just happened because they're so wonderful, so beautiful, and you hug them, and you kiss them, and you watch them, and you're with them. But then the competition came along, and now parents want to use that downtime to look at their phones, and that seeps into other times of the day, and pretty soon the parents are not really looking at their kids. It's just continuous partial attention. Parents don't understand there are ramifications to that. In order to have attachment, you do have to pay attention to your child. So we talk in the course about attention. And that's Michael Rich on the upper right side. He's called the mediatrician. He's an expert from Harvard. And he says the biggest thing that kids say to him in his practice is, my parents are not paying enough attention to me. And so that's why people have to know from the get-go that part of the responsibility of a parent is to pay attention. But in order for them to do that, they have to be aware of themselves around technology. They have to be aware of themselves around their kids. Just total awareness, new 360-degree awareness. So then we go into B, which is about balance, living a balanced life. And I use this comparison of body, mind, and spirit. You want your child to be equilateral triangle, balance. And then the next B would be brains. And just to give them a little lesson about the brain. The brain is plastic, and that means that it responds to the child's environment and their experience. And the child's brain, I explained about neurons and how many, how they link up and everything, and use a lot of statistics that are pretty easy to understand. But it also doesn't connect depending on what the child does. So it turns out if they're doing this for long periods of time, it looks benign, and they're very quiet, and they're very neat and tidy, but they are in a 2-dimensional environment. They are not using all their senses. And the way humans are designed are to use all their senses in order to fully connect their brains. And therefore, this child's brain is not connecting as well as a child who's not doing this for hours a day. So here's Dr. Anne-Lise Duconda. She lives in France, and she saw in her practice that more and more kids were coming in, and they're like autistic-like. So she's like, what's going on? So she kept asking the parents over and over, what's going on, what's going on? she finally uncovered the fact that these kids that were coming in and not looking at their parents, having horrible rages and not responding to their names, having all these weird symptoms, these toddlers, 1.5, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. She uncovered that they either had the TV on in the background the whole time, the kid was grabbing the dad's phone, the mom's phone, hour after hour. And she began to find kids like this. The picture on the left is drawn by a 4-year-old that doesn't watch much television, no screens, basically. The one on the right, the child watched hours a day. The child doesn't know how to draw a figure. That has been missed in this child's upbringing and development. It can't be missed. The brain has certain windows when it's learning certain things. If it gets past that window, the brain has a hard time learning whatever that function was. We don't know everything about it. We know something about it. We know that amblyopia, you know that it has a certain window where it can be fixed in the very young children. And the same type of thing is happening in the child's brain. So anyway, I have this metaphor that's somewhat easy to understand. You want your child to have a bushy brain like that broccoli on the left, and you don't want the child to have a broccolini brain, which is if they are constantly in a 2D environment and they're not using their senses, their brains are not going to be interconnected. So it hits people pretty hard when they see that, because they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want my kid to have a broccolini brain. So we have a 30-second video here. I tried to create these animations because I'm a video producer too, that gives one thought. It's a one-thought video. So I try to keep them to around 30 seconds, and that's, I hope, somewhat easy to understand. Here's a handout from my course by the 2 top researchers in the country on preventing virtual autism, but we can say it in a more positive way, is how to promote, to make sure your child has full brain development by limiting screen exposure. So this is a really sweet pamphlet that they have that I'm handing out in the course. Then we go into C. Every child is unique. This is my big durable thing where every kid is unique. There's some special thing inside of every child, and we shouldn't block that. Our whole job is to make sure that thing blooms. And so even before they become creative, they have to be allowed to be curious. They have to let their inside forces, have them be curious about something. And we're all going to be curious about different things, which means as adults, we're going to bring all sorts of ideas and have a very diverse society. So then I get into this section about play. Play is so important. The limbic system is stimulated when kids are playing, especially, so that's why I talk about 360 degrees. In this book, Balanced and Barefoot, this occupational therapist found out that a lot of her middle school kids were coming in. They would just cry, they would fall down, they're totally clumsy. It's amazing how much stuff is in her book. But she found that if they're prescribed time outside and they actually have intensive time outside, they can become strong, graceful. They become more emotionally stable, because that has to do with the limbic system and self-confidence. So I'm trying in a very nice way, I'm trying to tell people how great it is if they take their kids outside, and I talk a little bit about tummy time in the grass and try to make them less afraid of taking them out. Then we get into the other C, which is containment, that we parents give our children short attention spans. They pop out and they have long attention spans, but then we get to the park and we're tapping our watch. Angela Hanscom, the author of that book, says they need at least 45 minutes to dip into an imaginative state. They take time. They need time. So we need to contain our impulses to rush away, maybe bring them around for this journal to the park, make friends with another parent, so you can each take parents, the kids to the park, take turns doing that. And then I have, this is an offline. You do use your phone for this. Look at the green around yourself. Where are the parks near you? Those are your beautiful parks. Take your child there. Go play. It's really just opens their eyes to their own locality. And then D is about development, but durability. And this is childhood development as a dynamic brain-world interaction. So it's, again, the idea of a child's brain will become densely connected like a bushy brain, like a broccoli, if they use all their senses. And I get into things like sleep. I advocate for making the bedroom a sanctuary from the very beginning in the nursery, because eventually these kids are going to be having input all the time. They're going to be ingesting input. Their bedroom should be a place for mental digestion right from the start. And those kids are going to be able to develop a moral compass. They're going to be able to think things through, and they're going to learn the 21st century skill of detaching from their phones. I have a couple of things that I've designed to help kids charge their phones in the kitchen. And so kids need to know how to detach. So this is how to start it. No electronics or computers all the way through school if possible. And then for parents, use an alarm clock instead of your cell phone, so you have good habits and model. And then I tell them about certain resources like from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Family Media Plan, which I think can be quite valuable. And then you end up, you hope your kid is confident, healthy, has fun, and you have a great relationship with your child. So that's essentially what this course is all about.